outreach during the month of March with a communications plan, a website, a video, and a media outreach. And then for actual action, we'll be coming back next month at the governing board and request to initiate rulemaking to repeal the recovery strategy and remove all those references to the strategy and district rules. And at that point, I'll be happy to take any questions.
I have a question, just for historical clarification. What was going on in 2007 and 2008 when there was a sharp incline of pumping? Because I saw in 2003 there was a sharp decline. Just wanted to know, well, I mean, before that.
Talking about this particular graph?
Yes, and then a couple of slides prior. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, the initial cutback was when the reservoir came online in 2003. But it wasn't fully anticipated that Tampa Bay water would be below 90 MGD at that time. They were only required to be below 121.
Yeah.
So as long as they managed the well fields below the 121, which you can kind of see in this diagram here, they made that, they made that rate, below that rate for 2003 through 2007. Other alternative sources had to come online, reclaim water during that period. So we weren't anticipating that the well fields would reach that target of 90 into 2008. You can see they've done that. The utility operates the well fields individually, where they talk about that operations plan. So they will periodically shift pumping within individual well fields to minimize impacts on another one. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of see the shift in pumping through the years, and they kind of minimize it through that operation, the environmental impacts through that operations plan.
Okay, thank you. And also, do you have any photos in the wetlands in their original state prior to the excessive pumping?
Photos of the excessive?
Yeah, of those wetlands prior to the pumping, of how they looked in their original state before they were dried up during this.
That's a good question. We probably would have to search our archives. I'm not sure because, some of these well fields started in the 30s and 50s and 60s. So
it'd be nice to have.
We might have some of the newer well fields that came online, but that's a good point.
Thank you.
And we could pull some aerials. I'm sure we have some aerial data.
Sure.
That would show historic versus the most impacted time and then kind of where they are now.
Mr. Chair, this is John. I really appreciate the presentations, Mr. Hogg and Mr. Basso, and this is the third iteration I think I've seen of them, and it's great to watch them each and every time. And I just want to echo the sentiments of the fellow board members. To me, this is just super, 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 super exciting news. And I can't imagine the level of professional excellence and rigorous attention to detail over the last 2 decades. You've mentioned how much empiricism is within our grasp, and I think, Mr. Hogg, you said you can cut it several different ways. You still come to the same conclusion: success, success, success. And I want to extend my thanks. I feel like the free agent that came late in the season, sat on the bench, and still got the Super Bowl ring. Because I get to be here and celebrate what so many others before us had to do. They had to make difficult decisions. Staff members that have been here much of their entire career, board members that have made very painful and difficult decisions in the past. The collaboration between the Tampa Bay Water and the district and all the stakeholders. What began with a question of either water supply or environmental wetlands, now we can look back and say it's the power of and. And I think that's partly why we exist, and this is a success story that has already been mentioned. I mean, needs to be trumpeted. Fireworks, balloons, cake, all those good things for a long time, because the result of where we are today is really quite amazing. And so I thank you for your presentations, but mostly thank all those in the past and the staff that's represented here for this incredible, incredible story that benefits Florida and all its taxpayers. So I've gone on a little too long, but I'm just so excited about it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, just
Thank you, Ms. Mitten.
if I could add just a personal note, I'm sorry. I've been here 33 years, so I was kind of on the ground floor of, with a team of scientists, I played my small part, but we developed the scientific foundation to determine that the well field pumping was adversely affecting these wetlands and lakes. You know, we went through, I mean, I probably modeled hundreds of groundwater flow model simulations as part of this in the 90s. You know, wrote chapters and reports. You know, we went through the litigation and, you know, the science was upheld. And then the partnership agreement came out of that, where we had all these different competing interests come together to form this partnership to reduce the withdrawals, come up with these alternative water supplies, spend hundreds of millions of dollars getting them in place, seeing the well fields sustainably cut back, and then the recovery of the environmental system. I mean, this is just a tremendous success story. And I'm just proud to be part of this and part of this organization to see this through.
Awesome. Seth, this is Kelly. I'd like to make a comment or two. Ron,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate what you just said about, you know, when the problem surfaced, right? And that's where I was as I was going through this. I'm like, okay, we've got some lakes drying up and you've got some of those things. And, you know, how do you even begin to build the framework to define the problem, you know, and how the withdrawals and to what degree they contribute. And I can only imagine that was a big undertaking. But if I heard Mr. Hogg right, there was 2.5 million folks that are benefited and served by the Tampa Bay water. And we're using about 80 million gallons a day from groundwater, which is like 32 gallons per capita per day. And if I'm not mistaken, our kind of compliance metric is at 150 gallons per day.
Yeah,
water use
but
per
they're
day.
not just specifically served with groundwater. The
I know,
alternative
I
sources.
understand.
Yeah.
But so through the investment in the alternative water supplies, there's been this almost 80% reduction in the groundwater per capita used. I mean, and that's just another way of looking at how we're doing. But anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seth.
Any final comments, accolades from board? Hearing none, Mr. Basso, Mr. Hall, thank you both so very much for your time and your detail and your dedication to this. And as you can see, everyone here appreciates it, and there's so many more out there who don't know this story, but I'm confident they'll appreciate your work for decades and decades to come. So we have no submit and file reports
Thank you.
today. We have no submit and file reports today, and the Resource Management Committee now stands adjourned. And I hand the gavel over to Operations, Lands, and Resource Monitoring Committee, Mr. Bishop.
There's no items moved for discussion. We have one presentation only today.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Asmita Shukla, lead data analyst with the hydrologic data section, and I'll be presenting an overview of the hydrologic conditions district-wide today. Please note that this is for informational purposes only and no board action is requested. We are halfway through the dry season. This dry season will end May 2021. Last month, we only received half an inch of rainfall. We usually receive 2 to 3 inches of rainfall every month in the dry season. So given the considerable lack of rainfall last month, I'll start with an overview of last month's rainfall. So you can see that our long-term mean for the January rainfall is 2.5 inches. We only received half an inch, 1/5 of the long-term mean. The highest rainfall we saw was 2.2 inches in the northern region, which is still less than the long-term mean. So that is another indicator of very dry conditions. When I say very dry conditions, in terms of numbers, it just means that the January 2021 totals were among the lowest 10% we ever observed for this month based on the historical data. Moving on to the 12-month rainfall, this will give you a better perspective of the full year, how we've been doing based on yearly totals. So we are 2.1 inches away from our long-term mean. The map on the right, this shows where we were at the end of January, and the inset map shows where we were at the end of December. Not much of the difference because we didn't receive much in January, but a thing to notice that most of the northern counties, the red areas you see, these are drier than normal, so we are experiencing a greater deficit in the northern counties. This is the present month's rainfall. This is a very different picture compared to January, and a very good one because we've already surpassed our long-term mean for February, 2.7 inches. We are approximately at 3 inches right now. Most of this rainfall fell in the northern areas of the district, which is good because we've been experiencing a greater deficit in those areas. This is the 12-month departure from mean. So we have some periods of above normal rainfall and then some periods of below normal rainfall. It's a natural cycle. At the end of January, we were at a deficit of approximately 2.2 inches. At the end of December, we were at a deficit of approximately 1.8 inches. So that low rainfall in January actually increased our deficit. But as you can see in this area, we have been in a deficit since January of 2020, but our hydrologic indicators remain strong, so there are no concerns at this time. Moving on to our hydrologic indicators, just so you know, for all the groundwater trends from now on, yellow represents normal, the green is above normal, and the red is below normal. And one of the consistent trends you will see as we go through this presentation is that water levels are declining, be it groundwater levels or lakes, but that is a usual seasonal phenomenon because we are in the dry season. So starting with the groundwater levels in the northern counties, we are in the normal range, but we are less than where we were at the same time last year, but that's just because northern counties have been experiencing a greater deficit. Central counties are doing better. We are at the higher end of the normal range and doing better than last year. Southern counties are doing the best within the district. We are in the above normal range and doing better than last year. Moving on to the lakes, the northern lakes, the water levels in the northern lakes, we broke into the below normal zone, but that's a natural seasonal phenomena. The Tampa Bay lakes are doing same as last year, and they are in the normal range. The Polk upland lakes are towards the high end of the normal range and doing better than last year. Again, the Lake Wales Ridge lakes are also in the normal range and doing better than last year. The flows in the Withlacoochee River have declined, but they are still in the normal range, so no concerns. The Hillsborough River is actually doing better than last year. We are towards the higher end of the normal range, and that is also good because the Hillsborough Reservoir, which sources its water from the Hillsborough River, the water levels are above the spillway in the reservoir, and the Water Supply Authority is ready for the remainder of the dry season. Flows in the Alafaya River are in the above normal range, and they are considerably higher than the last year, which is again good news because Hillsborough River and Alafaya River, they both supply water to the C.W. Bill Young Reservoir. And right now, it's almost full to capacity. It's storing 15.2 billion gallons as of yesterday. The capacity is 15.5 billion gallons. The Peace River flows have declined, but they're still within the higher end of the normal range, and they're doing better than last year, which is again good because Water Supply Authority is still able to take water off of Peace River. Typically in the dry season, the water levels decline and we're not able to take water off of Peace River, but they're still recharging. They have added 84 million gallons in the last month, and together, Reservoir 1, 2, and the Aquifer Storage and Recovery well field, they have a 534-day supply for the dry season. The near-term climate forecast shows that we are still in the La Nina conditions, which means that we will have below normal precipitation and above normal temperatures, at least until April. And then looking further into the future based on climate forecast, these La Nina conditions will actually transition into a phase where we will have equal chances of above normal, below normal, or near normal rainfall. And then as the summer rainy season picks up, we will have chances of higher than normal precipitation. So we hope to make up all the deficit that we have been seeing in the last year. So in summary, the January rainfall was less than the historic mean, and the northern counties were drier than the others. There are no concerns at this time because our hydrologic indicators are strong, but also because our water supply systems are healthy. Normal counties are more prone to drought, so we will be monitoring them closely though. And we do expect these La Nina conditions to go on until April, and then we transition into a neutral phase. And from that neutral phase, we go to above normal precipitation in the rainy season. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
No questions. There are no submit file reports. Today's Operation Lands and Resource Monitoring Committee now stands adjourned. And I'll turn it over to Regulation Committee. And Joel, you're that today?
I call to order the Regulation Committee of February 23rd, 2021. There is one for information only item, I believe, provided. Are we going to get an update on the 404 assumption? Okay.
Morning, Chairman, board members. My name is Cliff Anderson, and I am the ES Manager in the ERP Bureau at the Water Management District, and I am the point of contact for the 404 program. And this is a follow-up to the presentation that was given at the January 26th board. Today, I'm going to update you guys on the Wetland Delineation and Certified Wetland Evaluator Program, the ongoing coordination process with the FDEP, and an update on the federal challenge. Wetland delineation methodology has not changed under the 404 program. The department has always had the responsibility of oversight of the 62-340 program. We talked at the last board meeting about the Certified Wetland Evaluator Program that was created to bring consistency and accountability to staff and to address concerns of the accuracy of wetland delineations. Since that last meeting, we have been given direction that district staff can become certified, and I'm happy to say that we have 4 ESs that have currently passed the required tests and are certified by the department. We hope to have all of our staff certified in the coming months. A report to the Environmental Protection Agency will include an audit of both department and district wetland delineations to ensure statewide consistency and application of those rules. Another new improvement in direction since last month's presentation was district staff can now screen projects and are only sending those to the department that have direct impacts in assumed waters. We are no longer required to forward projects to the DEP for their proximity to wetlands. Joint site visits on projects that require coordination are a time saver, as district and department staff are able to coordinate with the consultants and take care of issues in the field at one time. Permit applications that had been submitted to the Army Corps prior to assumption have been transferred to the department for review and issuance. District staff are available and helping to work through these transferred projects if any ERP questions arise and help prioritize those reviews. With any new programs come challenges, and we're continuing to create efficiencies and process improvements as we work through the increased workload and additional documentation required under the 404 and ERP programs. Staff have already begun to recognize and incorporate this information into the business plan for when the program is ultimately delegated to the Water Management District. We're doing the best we can at this time as we navigate through these uncharted waters in a new program. For an update on the federal challenge, I'm going to turn it over to District General Counsel, Ms. Karen West.
Thanks, Cliff. Not too much has occurred since last month's update. There has been activity in the case, but it's largely procedural and scheduling in nature. The one item that did occur of significance is that FDEP has been granted leave to intervene, so that they're now part of the lawsuit. And we'll continue to keep you updated as that progresses.
Thank you, Karen. And now I can address any comments or answer any questions that you might have about this update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just thank you for the presentation, and I think it's important as a district, the entire desire behind this is that we're smaller, we're more nimble, and so I appreciate staff's efforts as we go forward and to work with FDEP to get these 404 paperwork and all these certifications and permits through as quickly as possible for our stakeholders and those applicants that are waiting on these things. So really appreciate the opportunity and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from board members? There are no action items today. There are no submit and file reports, and so therefore today's regulation committee now stands adjourned, and I relinquish to Kelly Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Schleicher. We now are going to move into the General's Counsel report. If you'll recall, we had two consent items that were moved, and both of those items fall under the General Counsel's office. So we will start, and these are action items. So we will need to take action on each of these items. So we will start with agenda item 2.10, and that item is the, it's in your agendas 2.10, and do we have Mr. Norgart with us today? Is he here or on the phone?
He was on the phone, Mr. Rice.
Mr. Norgart, can you hear me?
Yes, I really don't want to, I didn't mean to talk. I was just listening today. I'm sorry, I probably signed up wrong.
This is which item?
It's 10.10.
210.
Yeah. So if I heard you correctly, it was a little bit muffled for me, but if I heard you correctly, you just wanted to listen to how the board moves forward with this item. Is that correct, Mr. Norgart?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, item 10.1 is an action item. What's the board's pleasure?
This is Michelle. Move staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Rice, just to correct, it's item number 2.10.
What did I say?
I think he
1.2.
He just transposed.
2.10?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second for the staff's recommendation on item 2.10. Do we have any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call?
Yeah, roll call.
Yeah, we'll do a roll call.
Joel Schleicher,
Aye.
Rebecca Smith,
I'm so sorry. I'm sitting here chattering away. Approved.
James Murphy,
Approved.
Michelle Williamson,
Approved.
Ed Armstrong,
Yes.
Roger German, Jack Bishbaum,
Approve.
Seth Waitman,
Approved.
John Minton,
Approve.
Ashley Barnett,
Approve.
and Kelly Rice.
Approved. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. The next item that we have under the general counsel's report is item 2.6.
Correct.
And I understand we have Miss Jessica Lair. Is she with us or on the phone?
On the phone.
She's on the phone. Miss Lair, you have the floor.
Thank you all very much. And I just want to apologize first and foremost. I have my wonderful 4-year-old sitting here next to me with COVID. There's no before care right now. So if there's, any sounds, it's this little guy. But he's being my little helper. So the first thing I wanted to say, because I know I don't have a lot of time, is I wanted to press upon this board the diligence in which we've been acting and the importance to us. We have in correcting all noncompliance issues. One thing that was specifically stated in the recap that was submitted by SWIFMA's attorneys, there's a mention